in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What's a pity? Tomorrow never certain. What was behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, could either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
The battle is upon us indeed. 2023 is upon us. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Case Closed. Every Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every Sunday, we got an all-star panel as usual. And today, we're going to get right into it. Last week, we talked about the fact that 2022 was a wake-up call, and 2023 is going to be a kick in the butt. Yes, economically, there's going to be the leveling of the playing field, and the tide is going to wash out, and those whom have been swimming without underwear are going to be exposed, ladies and gentlemen. So we're talking about inequality, socioeconomic inequality, and how that's a good thing. Well, we'll get into that, but let's begin like this. First of all, shout out to LAR, shout out to Kaizo, Dr. Thunder, in the building. Hope you guys are doing well in this first weekend. Well, it was the second weekend actually, because Sunday was the first. The second show, second case closed. Hope everyone is doing well. Let me start out like this, okay? I want to ask you a question, and I want you to answer from the heart, okay? Don't worry about who's listening. Don't worry about equivocating and twisting around and circumlocuting and all that kind of stuff. The question is about inequality. Okay, do you think the world should be more fair, or in your heart again? Okay, or are you fine with inequality in terms of outcomes? Another way to put it is, hey, free market capitalism or something more in the communistic mode? Where is your heart? Let's start with Dr. Thunder and then Kaizo and then go to LAR. You heard the question, Dr. Thunder. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the sort of age-old question, equality, where's the sort of intersection between equality and equity, right? Equity meaning everyone gets the same thing. Equality meaning that folks have access to the same things. Now, if they take full advantage of that access, that's up to them. But there's no guarantees. I think I tend to side on the let's give everybody an opportunity side of things and let the chips be net for those that take risks and end up, falling flat on their face, which I think will serve as an encouragement to others to really be willing to get out there and take risks. And I also think that it is.
You're Borgin and cutting in and out. You're probably passing through some choppy spots. I'm gonna.
That we have designed.
Yeah, can you hear me, Dr. Thunder?
Society to protect those that cannot protect.
All right. Dr. Thunder is in the back of the bus somewhere, traveling, and so, but to paraphrase, basically, it's the question of equality of opportunities versus the equality of outcomes. You say, hey, you're for the side of equality of opportunity and perhaps a safety net for people whom are going to be taking risks, right? So an environment that encourages risk taking, such as let's say Silicon Valley, where it is okay to fail at a business, and you come back and you start your new business, and you can fail a few times. The same venture capitalists will actually refund you if you have, and by refund I mean fund your venture again if you indeed have good opportunities. But so overall, that seems to be your stance. Let me give you one more opportunity here to just to test your mic to see where we're at there on the technical difficulties front.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so that's basically it. It's. I think we should try to protect people that can't protect themselves, and also create a system that incentivizes people that are willing to take risks, right? Uh, to provide some sort of protections for them. But
Okay.
the baseline is yes, I want folks to have access, but there's no guarantees, and there's no crying in baseball either.
No guarantees. There's no crying in baseball. Okay, interesting. So, Kaizo, where does your heart? What does your heart say about the fact that you see inequality in the world? Um, I'm going to state my position just because I I'm very fine with inequality as a fact of life. Um, I'm very much for freedom and inequality. A lot of the freedom that I'm for, as a matter of fact, politically has to do with the freedom to be unequal. I'm very much a person of hierarchy. I know that people are very, very different. Um, and we're not talking about whether or not you're made in the image of God or whether your soul is worth something. It has nothing to do with socioeconomic inequality that we're talking about. So the fact that the people whom are going to be leaders, the fact that the people who are going to drag humanity by the scruff of its neck across the goal line, and then there's just going to be the masses, is a fact of life. Generation after generation after generation, you have to be insane. I'm speaking for myself now. You have to be insane to wonder about a world otherwise. Like it's like trying to wonder that the sky should be on the floor and the earth, the floor should be above. It's like that's just not what the system is. Okay, and I'm not talking about an economic system. I'm talking about just being itself. There are no equal planets. There are no equal trees in the forest. There is no such thing in nature, right? So that's kind of where my stance is. So I'm right in my heart very comfortable when I see unequal outcomes. However, yes, I don't want things to be unfair from an opportunity standpoint. Kaiser, what do you have to say about this equality versus inequality?
Well, it's great question actually. Right now I'm actually running my stream. Was getting over 50 something people there when we were being dusty. And the reason I brought that up is because we're talking about IQ, equality, and all that kind of stuff. So the premise was that I created is this: we fundamentally shouldn't be equal. Equality is something that is actually undesirable. And the reason why it's undesirable is because, well, JR, do you want to give me your money?
You mean
No.
LAR?
Sorry, LAR.
Just call him JR out of nowhere. Anyways, go ahead.
Hey, intelligence is not equal. I guess my brain cells, some of them are missing, right? So, yeah, the point is, right? LAR doesn't want to give me his money. You definitely don't want to give me your money. Like, if would we all come together and say, let's all divide our money? Now, someone like me, the dustiest out of all of us, hey, yeah, let's divide all our money together. But as you keep going into different areas, people are going to be like, hang on, there's something that I did to get here, sacrifices I made to get here. So I agree with Dr. Thunder's point a little bit that yes, the masses require some level of sanitization, right, of the equipment around them, just so that they're sort of safe in their bubble and they can kind of thrive in that bubble in an antiseptic environment. But in general, there has to be that freedom for the rest of us to go and conquer and slay the dragon and rescue our fathers from the belly of the beast.
All right, there, Dr. Jordan Peterson. Very well put. Very well put. Have you been darkening your skin, Dr. Jordan Peterson? But anyways, LAR, all unfeathered free capitalism out there, digging oil, striking gold, or would you like to see the world more fair? And again, this is more of a question of the heart, as in when you look out in the world and you see unfairness or inequality, what goes on in your heart? I already said that in my heart, I'm like, I don't even I don't care. Anyways, what do you have to say?
I'm on the opposite of that. I think my as far as heart goes, my heart is for more so equality, for the reason of what I've what I've seen in my lifetime and what I've studied in history. Inequality is like the enemy of excellence. Now you can have excellent people because it's an unequal world, but usually people who thrive off of inequality were already cheating the game to begin with. And they're kind of the enemy of excellent people because they're going to cheat them to make sure that they can't get as far as they could possibly go. So, as far as the heart goes, that's why I'm more of a fan of equality because, in my opinion, um, that's a more interesting competition.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, shout out to the kosher clinician dropping the first super chat early on in this stream. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much, sir. I will highlight it as soon as she shows up here on the StreamYard. I'm seeing it over on YouTube, and I go ahead and boom, there it is. Thank you very much, showing us indeed that the super chat button is working, and that's for you guys out there in the stream. Go ahead, click the share button, super chat those questions. Shout out to the panel. He says, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Now, if we come back to the theme here of 2023, okay, and I continue to push this argument about inequality being good. There are many, financial bubbles are bursting, right? And that's just kind of like the cycle that we're in. Bear markets, for the past about 100 years have happened about 17 times. For a while now, we've just been putting money out there, 0% interest rates. And you have all these companies, there's some of these companies called zombie companies where basically they don't really do anything. They're not really making anything, but they can sustain by just keep on borrowing at a very low interest rate. And they're just bloated corpses, basically. So individuals without real marketable skills, a lot of which I'm not talking about the dusties. I'm talking about middle management people. Okay. I'm talking about middle management people at Twitter, at Facebook, or wherever else. Many of these big corporations out there whom actually don't build things, they don't write code, they're not engineers, they're not actually doing any of the work. These people don't have transferable skills. They're good at talking a good game. They're in the diversity and inclusion department somewhere or something like that. These people are going to be let go. They're going to need to, sink or swim based on their own efforts. This is a good outcome, I would say. Now I'm going to ask this same question, which I just asked, but it's the same thing. Like, what do you think about the fact that these individuals will be flushed out? Starting with Dr. Thunder. What do you think about the fact that people whom have survived on on the teat of the federal, of the Fed, I mean, and the free money that's been out there, and the quantitative, the quantitative easing type of environment that has been out there, these people are going to be flushed out to the degree to which they do not actually have skills, and they've just been able to put themselves in managerial positions just by saying the right kinds of things when there was free money flowing around. What do you have to say about that? Good thing, bad thing? Thoughts, Dr. Thunder?
Well, I don't know that it's either a good thing or a bad thing. I think there's ebbs and flows. There's ups and downs, and if you're smart, you will take full advantage of the additional stuff that you get when you're on the up, and you will be able to tighten your belt on the down. Those people that are in careers or in jobs that require a certain amount of fat, you're putting yourself in a sort of dangerous kind of position, and so you should expect that things are going to change, and when they change, do you have something that you can move to?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, neutral position there, basically saying, look, if you're smart, you should know the kind of regime under which you're operating. And if you know that the skills with the job that you're in is just a BS job, and that under normal circumstances it would not even exist, that if you were to take a clean slate and look at the company and say, hey, what does it take to run this company? That you would not be on that list but the only reason you're there is because there's just extra billions and billions of dollars right now floating around. So if you're smart, hey, go ahead, take that position, but do not develop your skills, right, Dr. Thunder? Or am I misquoting you there?
No, that's basically what I'm saying. I've used this illustration before. Uh, I mean, it's basically what you just said, but if you apply it to, we'll say, church, being a church musician, there are certain positions in black church that are always going to be there. Okay, so for instance, if you play organ and you sing, right, you're going to have a place. But if you do something like play an instrument that's not necessary, so an instrument other than organ and drums, when things get really lean, that means you're going to be out. But in good times, you can have a job. So you have to be, while things are good, you have to be developing skills that make you less uh, likely to be downsized.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So you've heard what the question is, Kaizo. Middle management, people whom are not particularly skilled. We're not talking about on the dusty level, because you need to have a skill. Skill is the first thing that you leverage, by the way. It's not trying to do multi-level marketing. That's not the first thing you leverage. It's not trying to sell weave on Instagram. That's not the first thing you leverage. Anything that's easy for anybody to do with just a click, trust me, there is no money there. Everyone that's telling you, hey, here's how to make money quick. Here, I'm Dan Locke. Okay, click on this thing. I'm Kevin, or meet Kevin, whomever. I'm going to show you how to make thousands of dollars a week flipping houses. Trust me, it's not that easy. It's been, the money that was ever there has been competed away. There are people who have spent years in this particular endeavor developing skills, so it's not going to be easy for you. So on the bottom rung, obviously, for sure, you need to develop skills. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about people who have found themselves in the middle of the fat. They've been stuck in the butter for for the past 10 years now, and now it's going to get washed away. What are your thoughts about the plight of these people, Kaizo?
Yeah, I'm saying that Chat GPT is going to get rid of all their jobs. I think it's really that straightforward, because at every instance of technological development, they tend to be the people that get rid of first. So we look at McDonald's. Actually, the people going to lose their jobs mostly is the managers, because what's going to happen now is everything's going to be mostly digitized, and also the low level people obviously in the shop. Because right now, last time I went to McDonald's, I can buy the food and do everything I need from the machine. Soon it's going to be the manager who used to kind of control the kitchen. They're going to go to, because now it's going to be robotic. It's going to be programmed. So, and now with the introduction of Chat GPT, what that allows people to do is to actually organize and set up structures that's going to be able to, do way more for way less. So I say, if you don't have a skill, like a necessary specific skill in an environment that you can trade and leverage for the dollars, you're going to be most likely the first to go, because the managerial skills are useful right now, because obviously you do need a human element. But when you can have one human being doing the job of 10 men because of something like Chat GPT and any other AI innovations, unfortunately, I don't really see their positions paying as much as they should have, or rather they used to pay in the old days. I say, look, if you're a middle manager, get yourself some real hard skills. Now, the people like HR, I think they won't necessarily be got rid of, just because of the nature of what they are. But the other type of middle managers, I think they better be careful. So, Ike, LAR, Dr. Thunder, guys, be careful.
Shout out, ladies and gentlemen, talking about inequality in 2023 and all the people that have been buoyed up. And yes, Kaizo, I know you don't like me using such words. Kaizo keeps calling at me for my vocabulary. He says I need to stop using words like aristocracy and buoy and impulse and whatever the hell it is. But, I think that these are the things that actually describe the situation that I'm trying to talk about. And as Dr. Thunder would say, words do matter, right? So I'm trying to be precise with my language. We're talking about that, ladies and gentlemen. And part of the reason, LAR, as we get to you, of why I see things the way I do, is because, you know, in the in the building of the company, which I've kind of built here, or other things that I've done, 9 times out of 10, you can see people squander opportunities based on certain psychological ticks that they have, right? So they may have the ability, like, here I am, I'm giving them this opportunity. Well, the first general statement that I want to make is that basically, if you build a company and try to hire people, you're going to realize that most people suck at life, right? Um, and even if you're not building a company, I can go pick a clip of you, LAR, at some point, just describing how you look around and you see people sucking at life, right? Okay. So the more granular context that I'm describing here is, you have this individual, you give them opportunities, right? And what people with good sense are supposed to know is that, hey, there's a long game here. If I don't squander this by, being a complaining, begging, no good Nick, as the old folks would say, then, things will work out well. Okay. So you have like this 10% of people where they follow the opportunity, they do the right things they're supposed to do, and boom, boom, 5 years from now, they got all the things right. They got like this opportunity and that opportunity, and more opportunities are coming to them because they've proven to people that they're worth something. Then you have the other 90% that come through. They want to complain. They're always talking about how things don't work out well for them. They don't seem to know why, but you see them and you're like, this is why. Okay, I don't tell them because I don't have time for that crap, right? I just let them go. But they do the wrong things psychologically. They just don't seem to understand that, dude, you need to be able to show value to people. You can't be a freaking thorn on people's side. You need to be able to show, get to point, ratchet up your utility before you start trying to negotiate, for example, right? You can't just go around thinking I'm entitled, I deserve, blah, 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 right? So, LAR, what are your thoughts about these people who are stuck in the fat middle management jobs and stuff like that? What are your thoughts?
I think what's going to wind up happening is crime is going to skyrocket because people don't want to deal with the possibility that even people in middle management, right, look at life like, well, I'm entitled to be mediocre and successful. That's the part of inequality that's, prevalent. You can be mediocre and successful if you have the, right place, right time, connections, this, that, and the third. So what happens when you have the information to, say, move up in a company, but they let you go, and you see hordes and hordes of people jobless? What do you think is next? They can't afford all these severance packages. So what do you think these people are going to do? Use the information that they have and leverage that to probably do something criminal to get over, and probably do something aimed at the business that just let them go. The thing about it is this, and I don't think, in this country especially, that people look at successful people as people who are stand-up people who had a good work ethic. I think successful people are looked at in business in particular, as people who would stab you in the back at a moment's notice to get ahead. So what you're doing is you're going to create a society where, especially when it's going towards business, that people go, well, hey, this is how we roll, right? If you're gonna cut me as the fat, I'm gonna cut off your profits, and that's just business. And then you're gonna see how people kind of on both sides react, because it's a war over finances. And which side would you rather be on? The rich side who feels that they can isolate and encapsulate themselves, or the poor side who feel like we got enough numbers to find you and break through? So, it's a forever purge, but that's all I got.
Forever purge, forever purge. Is that a TV series or
Movie series, The Purge?
Movie? The Purge. Yeah. Movie indeed. Now, shout out to Doug. Shout out to Doug. You know, he's been a member for 7 months. And salute Ike panel and chat. He says, let's go ahead and highlight. Shout out to Game Changer also in the building. Okay, and but LAR, I'm assuming you're not opposed to some of these companies that are going to go bankrupt, right? As a result of them not being able to just sustain themselves on the free money anymore, because people are not giving that free money anymore, right? The venture capitalists are not giving money anymore when you can put your money in bonds, a safe security, and get like 4 or 5% from Jerome Powell. You're not going to give it to some dusty company that's not really doing anything. So those that get washed out, they deserve, on the company front, they deserve what's coming to them, right?
The problem is that 20 years late. This should have been happening when Enron hit. So you basically paid people to be subpar, paid people to be multimillionaires and billionaires, to be business intellectuals, and they were complete idiots for 20 plus years. Everybody was too big to fail, but everybody still failed, but everybody got bailed out. Like, all I'm saying is, at this point, we need to just say that business America is dusty. Just because you got subsidized by the government does not mean you're not dusty. You got subsidized to be dusty, huh?
100%.
So, I think, in a political sense, when people say personal responsibility and less big, less government, more business. And it's like, you do realize the people who are saying that are getting paid by people who kept getting money from the government because they wouldn't take personal responsibility and just go under because they failed, and they won't pay you. So it's like, people have been buying bullets for years. I hope people understand it might get ugly.
Yes. For the third time, LAR reminds us that people have been buying bullets. He says he goes to the, I don't know how come you see, you work at a gun store or something, like you're just one of those that just every weekend you're there.
No. Like, I'm in Texas, so you have sporting goods stores. You have a Bass Pro Shop. We got Academy, Sports Authority, but more so sporting stores, like when you buy shoes, football, baseball equipment, and hunting stuff. They always have the gun show. So when you go in there to buy, I will buy, like hand wraps and stuff like that. And even when I'm working, I go on breaks. You would see the displays, and they put this. It got so bad they put the displays in the front of the store for all the bullets, and this had been going on for years. And I'm not talking no small store. I'm talking about sporting stores the size of a Walmart. So they've been buying and buying and buying. And even if you check online, like, I'm around a lot of military people, so they'll tell you the price of bullets went up, the 9mm went up. I'm one of those people who buy boxes, like the big 250s, or sometimes 500 rounds or whatever. Or you can buy 1,000 in like a canister. Them things, it shot up so ridiculously that people just stopped buying bullets. So I'm just saying, these people ain't buying it for nothing.
100% LAR, 100%. Privatize the profits and socialize the losses. Isn't that the phrase, LAR? That's the way that these what I call bloated corpses, shell companies, have operated for decades. That we don't even understand what a real. I mean, it was the 70s. It was since the 70s. That was the last time Mr. Volcker in the Fed. It was the last time they actually had real interest rates like this. Okay, it should have been like this for a very long time. And a quick word again about my form of inequality. It is more drastic than perhaps I've described. I'm talking about a situation whereby it's a question of the entrepreneurial class versus the managerial class. So when you say business, yes, the CEO class, the middle management, all those people, they're dusty. They don't build shit, right? They're not the ones that they were Genghis Khan died 2 generations ago. They're just living off his corpse. I'm for the Genghis Khan type, okay? And sure, Genghis Khan is not by any means a bunny rabbit or an angel. So I know he's crazy too, but he, quote unquote, did what he needed to do. He actually built the damn crap. He slayed the dragon and rescued his father from the belly of the whale. Shout out to Kaizo and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why I say that my equality is inequality is more drastic, because those people are very rare, and those are the people that I tend to champion and that I'm for against almost about everybody else. Okay, but that's me being mythological there for a little bit. Eliar, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know how true this story is. I remember reading it in a book about Genghis Khan for this topic. Really, he was a trader, and it was like the Silk Road, and like some Frenchmen. He tried to trade with the Frenchman, and the Frenchman kind of played him, and he got his money up, got his weight up, and caught up to the Frenchman and poured boiling silver down his throat. And that was his, huh?
That would be the least of the kinds of nasty things that he did, but go ahead.
No, but this was at the beginning of it.
Oh, gotcha.
This was at the like they tried to, the guy was trying to block him from moving further as far as a trader. So it just kind of turned him into something else. And that's like when inequality, when you say Genghis Khan, part of what I'm thinking about by it is how many people are that trader right now that's about to go left?
Oh shit. Okay. Let's move on to a slightly let's talk about the context of different communities and how they deal with hierarchy. Okay. And to that end, I would like to play a little clip here. Okay. And what we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, is there a tendency, okay, to embrace the bottom of the barrel in the Black community? Is there a tendency that no matter how distinguished a Black person is,
I can answer that question now. Yes.
Okay,
let's keep going.
Okay. No matter you're saddled with having to speak up for Nug and them, right? The conversation gets dragged down to Pookie all the time. Even let's say you take the manosphere, right, where people are at least aspirational. At least you can say they are, right? At the bare minimum, they're aspirational in terms of like they're trying to break free of something. They're trying to red pill themselves in a particular way, right? Even there, it's still 90% talking about Pookie and Kiesha. And it's like, well, why do you even have to talk about them? In other places, it would seem like they just call them white trash and they don't even look their way. They drive past them, splash water on them, and move on. That's me painting a caricature there. But it's a question Dr. Thunder has already kind of answered. But it's still a question. Let's play a little clip here from my man, Glenn Lowry. Shout out to him.
This question comes from someone whose initials are GJR. GJR writes, my question is about the sharp divergence between how mainstream white and Black communities tend to regard their own riffraff. Now, we can get bogged down in a discussion about whether it's elitist or ungenerous to regard part of a community as riffraff, but come on. There are respectable, reputable people of all ethnicities, and then there are the deadbeats and the criminals. The difference between these two types is much greater than the difference between the races. It seems like upwardly mobile, good Black citizens are to be forever saddled with the riffraff of their communities, certainly more so than whites. White people have always seemed more inclined to write off their lower cohort as, quote, trash, etc., while Black people seem to be more duty-bound to theirs. It is admirable, no doubt, to try to uplift the lesser among us, and I can see clear historical reasons why Black Americans might feel this obligation, but I wonder if it is not in the end an albatross to have your community forever saddled with a bunch of losers. I leave other ethnicities out of the discussion only out of ignorance. I don't have any sense of how they regard their own ne'er-do-wells. One advantage to writing off your riffraff is that it creates social pressure to not be like those people. Nobody wants to be looked down on. Another advantage, especially if there is a socially acceptable epithet involved, is that it instantly distances you from the other. bad group. So that's the question.
Okay. So I want to start with LAR here because, in getting the feel of, the whole inequality thing, you were the one that kind of said that, your heart is more on that whole, you like the equality stuff. So the question directly plays to you, and then we'll go back to Dr. Thunder, even though you answered preemptively. The question is this: is there a tendency to embrace the bottom of the barrel in the Black community? LAR, what do you say to that?
Yeah. And thinking about what he just said and thinking about what y'all just saying, I'm gonna throw a curveball in this. I think the issue isn't that people embrace the bottom of the barrel. I think what really winds up happening is we're the only ones who look down for embracing the bottom of the barrel. So,
are you saying that everybody equally embraces the bottom of their barrel?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
See, like America, we put the bottom of the barrel on the money. We just say who's not the bottom of the barrel when it compares to somebody else. But the bottom of the barrel is put on the money. The bottom of the barrel in the Hispanic community, they have a city, for their biggest drug dealers. They got murals for them. The bottom of the barrel, even though it's white culture, in Italian culture is what? Propped up everywhere. This is the greatest thing ever. Biker culture, greatest thing ever. When it comes to, how can I say this? When it comes to how we're a country who promotes and perpetuates violence and criminality. It's part of our entertainment. But the difference is when we look at other people's true stories, we kind of, I don't know why it's like a subconscious thing. Well, oh, they're not that bad. I'm not saying it's right to embrace the bottom of the barrel. I'm just saying that pretty much everybody does it. It's just they're kind of light when they do it. It's not, it's bad, but it ain't that bad. Because if it was actually that bad, they would actually demonize these things and not glorify them. So that's just what I think about it. I just want to throw a curveball in there.
Okay, Dr. Thunder, you're next. Are other communities better at separating their productive versus unproductive classes than the Black community? What do you say?
Yeah, so although there's aspects of what LAR is saying that I agree with, in what I think the intention of the question is, I would say we are worse at that. And there is a sense of responsibility that's sort of baked in where, in particular, Black men feel responsible for a community that has not been particularly, celebrated us, appreciated us, propped us up like the boys and men of other communities are propped up. And it's this sort of age-old SYSBM versus this new acronym, which is still the same thing, which is SYCBM. Should we be spending our time catering to trying to save and rescue dysfunctional aspects of the community that has basically ostracized us? Or should we save ourselves and then anyone that will comply without explaining anything, that will just comply? I think if there's anyone to save, it would be ourselves, our families, and then perhaps people that.
You're Borgen again. You're Borgen again in the back of the bus. But let me just say one thing about something that strikes me about what you said. The undesirable aspects of the community that has ostracized you. It almost seems like, well, they should not even have the power to ostracize. Where do they even come up in your view? Why should they even be considered as? Why are their thoughts even? And again, I've stated, you know where I stand on things. I'm a man of hierarchy. I'm a man of inequality. I'm for calling people BANs, right? I don't give a crap. Okay. So the idea that there will be some aspect of the community which is undesirable, that is ostracizing, seems like that struck me. So do you want to rephrase that, or what do you mean by that? Go ahead.
Well, the structure is upside down. So and the dysfunction has sort of permeated every aspect of the community. So yeah, I mean, so that's why folks that should ostracize. Um, so that's
Okay. Gotcha. Hopefully the bus moves to a
that
better location, because you're
answer.
going in and out again. So MOT, you came in here in the middle of the conversation, but I want to ask you a quick question first, and then you answer the question which is on the table, right?
Okay.
So basically, I just want to know what you think about this notion of inequality here, right? In your heart, not necessarily pragmatically or politically, do you think the world should be more fair, or are you okay with inequality, right?
It's kind of like me. I draw the line of fairness when there's equal actually funding in schools, not really equal outcomes. When there's actual equal funding in schools, then we could talk about equal outcomes. But the equal outcomes is actually the responsibility of the parent themselves, because every parent knows people who've done well within their class that they graduated in. They know the people who've moved on from the community and somewhere else. Like these people who actually are left behind, they keep very close tabs on the people who are doing very well. They keep very close tabs on them. Now, will they socialize their kid into doing that? No, because they're trying to keep their position of power inside their household kind of centered around the fact that they are the top of the food chain. That has nothing to do with anyone else. People come over here from other countries and do very well within our system because they came from a caste system that did not base anything on individual effort. And then they come to a system where individual effort is actually the only thing that you need. This is why people who are not even smarter than us come to a better system than they actually have been privy to their entire lives, and they do way better than us. For me, at this point, you don't center things around individuals who are doing it wrong. I don't care about women who can't pick men properly. I don't care about men who actually are waiting on women to submit. I don't care about any of those people. Those people are obsolete and they should not be focused on at all. The only thing that I'm focused on right now is making sure that the children have a better ground system that to where they can be able to move to a better system overall, even if I don't benefit off of it. Like that's the great thing about change. I don't need to benefit from change. I want the future to benefit from change. I don't care about these people who haven't done anything right. The actual level of baseline information in this environment that people have access to right now is better than bad parenting that they're going to get access to. They're going to be able to formulate better social constructs than people have actually tried to do without 40 or 50 years of life. I think give all the kids the actual answers to right now and watch them be better than anyone else. I say that this actual focus on the actual bottom barrel of people was made to make it so that with people who never done anything right, to consistently be part of the conversation. That's the only thing that it was able to do is keep people being part of the conversation who never have should have been. You've never hear really doctors, PhDs, people who have their stuff together. I mean, extremely together. Millionaires talking about black community. What are we going to do about community? No, community means fix bad, broken women. Send broken women a signal flare that they can keep doing what they're doing. There's going to be a group of men socialized into fixing their actual issues. At this point, you have to let people stand where they are standing, and you should not be worried about the people who are doing it wrong. The women have infinite choice. If they want to use their infinite choice to have a better solution, regardless of how they acted in the past, they can really go on and do that. There is no man out there that's going to turn down a woman, regardless of her background, who have her stuff together and have an understanding of where they want to go right now. Not a man. Doesn't matter how many kids they got. So at the end of the day, you have to let these people fall or rise based on their individual accomplishment or lack thereof.
Okay, so I think you answered both questions, right? Implicit in there is you admitting to the fact that yes, within the black community there is a tendency to embrace the bottom of the barrel, right? And
Correct.
We'll get around to maybe a little bit of why, because I think it's a psychological thing, Okay, but and if it is indeed a psychological thing, then it must be addressed. Otherwise, this future that you speak of, you might have more hurdles getting there than one may foresee. Now, um, Kaizo, Kaizo. What are your thoughts on this as an outsider looking in? Do you think that,
I'm a PhD.
generally speaking, generally speaking, do you think that there is a difference in the way different communities handle their riffraff, right? In Nigeria, or in Kenya, for example, where one of them recently got burnt while you were out there. Uh,
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. So
they put a
someone
tire in them
from
and burned
the
them. Go ahead.
someone from the colorful flag actually was burnt. Oh no. Sorry. That's a whole different story. I was actually walking across a city, sub-city called Eastie. I saw some nigger get torched in the middle of the street because, hey, they stole. And over here, thievery is not acceptable. You know, we're not even as good as the Saudi Arabians who, just make sure one hand is no longer attached to the rest of the, you know, to the rest of the robot. But over here, it's straight up old school fossil fuel tire overview and obviously torch. So over here, we don't really kind of do that whole thing of trying to save the riffraff. The riffraff is in the street. If you have dreadlocks, again, these are just markers for certain types of people that do tend to be part of these criminal or otherwise organizations. When we see those kinds of people, they are kind of set aside, and we don't try to help them. I mean, the kids, yes, obviously, as I believe what our good truck man over here of tomorrow, he mentioned earlier something about, okay, making sure there's an equal playing field, and I agree with that. Actually, I would say that, I'm almost backtracking what I said earlier, but create equal playing field. But in general, it doesn't really matter who reaches the top, but you work with the people that reach the top, and then you create a hierarchy of superior people from your tribe. So in your case, maybe if you're part of the Black American tribe, you make sure that, MOT's got kids, Ike has got kids, LR and Dr. Thurner's got kids. They continuously work and operate within that sort of circle, and they keep building and building and building, because the issue with the riffraff is they're always going to drag you down. And how laws of averages, if there's more riffraff than you guys, you will averagely be brought down. So I say some communities, especially in Africa, we don't really care about the bottom of the barrel. And just go LAR's points. When you're living in a society when you are the minority, or you are going to be basically, all your actions are going to be amplified. So that means, yes, your riffraff will be amplified more so than the riffraff of the other races. So unfortunately, that is just part of being a minority.
So, Dr. Thunder, let's dig in a little bit to this psychological thing. Is it part of this low-level PTSD that I've heard you mention? Low-level PTSD that makes it such that perhaps people feel like they have to embrace the riffraff of their community because it's a us versus them mentality. If I go outside and become successful, then I'm being white and I'm not being part of my community. I got to embrace everything about my community, especially now that my success and a book bag and actually being technically skilled and all that kind of stuff is seen as white. This is just my statements, but the psychological aspect of this, because it is psychological, is it not, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, if I understand the question, I definitely, I think that we have definitely been conditioned to, have the tendencies that we have. And, there's a disproportionate number of us that will just continue to take bad deals, to make excuses for, to sort of wallow in the mud, as it were, instead of getting ourselves up, dusting ourselves off, and making a go of it, a real go of it. And I give this illustration. I've done this illustration a few times. So it's like, so say you have two people. They're both in a boat. One person can swim enough to save their own lives. The other person can't swim. For some reason, there's no life preservers. in the boat, and you're out in the middle, um, and for some reason, the person that can't swim falls in the lake. Okay, so the instinct for the person that's on the boat is that can at least swim enough to save their own lives is to jump in the water. But if the person that can't swim does that wild flailing thing, then they're going to take both themselves and the person trying to save them out. They're going to take them both out. So unless the person that is flailing is willing to comply immediately with the instruction, stop doing that. If they're not willing to comply with that instruction, then you must leave
How many warnings are needed?
Yeah, you're Borgin, but yeah,
Yeah, I have
my
a question.
intuition was
because
immediately
really
going to
your
go there
only
and
choice
ask.
is
Hold on, Dr. Thunder, your internet is doing something again. But my intuition was to ask, well, what is the likelihood that they take those instructions, right? Number one, and then Kaizo, you were about to ask, like, okay, how many
Yeah,
warnings?
I actually think
Go ahead.
your first question is probably redundant because I think that's what allows us to sort of remain in this circumlocution. Now, I'm going to bring up another so-called Kenyan take here and just give me a second to give the story over here. So in the same region where that guy was, torched, it's called Eastleigh. Now, it is a majority Somali area, but it used to be highly ridden with crime, right? A lot of young Somali men used to go commit crimes against people, knife point, knife crime, because they were taught by the UK people that came back, set up, organized crime. Now, what this guy called Abdi Rashid, now he was a so-called police officer. What he did is he used to go there, find known thieves. Again, they know they've stolen, they've caught them in the act several times. They've given them warnings, about 3 warnings, and they even go to their parents and everything. Now, if they refuse to listen, let's just say, this guy with his team of secret police go and delete these thieves. Now, what did happen in this culture, I'm not saying, people should delete people. That's not the point here I'm making. But after he deleted all those gangs, guess what? The crime rate reduced significantly. Now, the point here is, right, are you willing, or are people willing to allow people to delete themselves? Or because obviously I'm responding to what Dr. Thunder mentioned earlier, because he said, okay, he wants to sort of sanitize the area so that, even sick people can enter the room, so to speak. Well, at what point can you teach someone how to sanitize? And if they refuse to sanitize and, if they end up just dying because they didn't sanitize properly, at what point how many chances do you give people without, and just say, hey, look, yeah, I can't do this for you anymore.
Okay, I got
okay.
you. I got you. Go ahead, Dr. Thunder. Answer his question, which is dovetail with my question. He's talking about chances. I'm talking about what is the likelihood of them even taking those instructions, such that
So the
you're
likelihood,
forced to an a priori decision without having to do tests.
Yeah, the likelihood is low, and that's the problem. Because
is it a problem, or is it just the fact that drowning people, where people don't know how to swim, or it's not? The likelihood is low, so don't try to save somebody that's unless you're a trained lifesaver. And you have the right
well, that's
tools, right?
part of the so that's part of the problem too, right? So we've been conditioned to think. See, remember in my illustration, I said the instinct was to jump in the water. I didn't say that that was necessarily the right thing to do, given that the person themselves don't swim very well, right? But that's the instinct. That's the cultivated instinct, is to jump in the water and to think that that is the right thing to do, when maybe that's not even the right thing to do. But what's worse is it's not likely that the person will comply. It's not likely that they will comply, and that's part of the. So you've got 2 issues here. You have the person that's jumping into the water. They shouldn't be jumping in the water in the first place. That was a wrong instinct. And the second issue is that the person that they would be trying to save is not likely to comply. So you're both going down.
Both going down indeed. Now let me play a little bit here before we continue. Okay, I'm gonna go to Man of Tomorrow next, but let me see what John McWhorter has to say to the question of, is there a likelihood for the Black community to embrace it's bottom of the barrel. Okay, which by the way comes at the cost, or which at a great cost to these people of excellence, these diamonds in the rough, whom should be found and polished. Like, for example, in India, where the boys are given the food, or men are fed first because they know that those are the ones that are going to go out and work. Boys are fed first because they're the ones going to be responsible, right? So you need to focus on the tip of the spear, the top of the hierarchy. The minute you start doing anything else, you start taking away from that, which, by the way, diminishes the whole community. Okay, so to the degree to which I'm going to be utilitarian, right? To the degree to which we're talking about the good of the many, my position is that my hierarchical kind of aristocracy stuff actually works better for the whole community, because one diamond in the rough will save hundreds and thousands of people. One Elon Musk will take the whole freaking planet to before people start coming and say, oh, but it was this and it was that and he was giving money by this, or and this father owned the mine. Like, I don't give a fuck about any of that crap. But anyways, let's go ahead and play this.
I guess maybe there are two questions there for us. One is the premise correct? Are there in fact these differences between the races and the inclination to condemn, disavow, and isolate the so-called riffraff? And then the other is, if there are such differences, then why are blacks less inclined to do so? What do you think?
A few decades ago, somebody white, who I think was a guy, I think he was in the sports industry. We could look it up and you might remember who it was. Somebody said, problem with the black community is that there's no shame in failure. And his head rolled immediately. I think I
don't remember that.
See, I think it was in the 80s. 90s the latest, but somebody said that. And I remember at the time thinking, and I've always thought since then, that is a very broad brush thing to say, but there's a little bit of truth in it, in that the enlightened black view is that black people are working against a certain rising tide, that black people work with a general obstacle of racism, be it personal or systemic, and that therefore, if a black person fails, if a black person is quote unquote riffraff, you can't see it the same way as you would see white riffraff because of the obstacles that black people face. And of course, there are those obstacles, and you can argue that there are differences. But what it does mean is that, especially today, I think less before the 60s, but especially today, there is a tacit sense that black riffraff are not to be dismissed as facilely as a white suburbanite would dismiss the kind of white riffraff you saw on a TV show like Breaking Bad, or, you know, the people who are addicted to meth, etc. There is an element there. The idea is that we face more obstacles, and therefore if a person fails to an extent, it has to be understood. So I would say that, yes, there is a sense in the black community that if somebody is a riffraff, as you put it, it's not ideal, but there's much less of an impulse to condemn that person as just a disaster, to consider that person unsuitable for any kind of romantic attachment, to keep that person hidden, than there might be in many white communities. Yes.
So MOT, you've heard that response there, basically adding in the idea of, you know, the history of slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, such that basically if someone is a riffraff, then you can't judge them as the way you would judge the dominant society, because after all, part of their riffraffness is because of the history of slavery, redlining, Jim Crow, right? So, and the general question is, you know, what is the psychological thing going on? Is there any justification for it, as John McWhorter has tried to give some justification for? What are your thoughts?
No, the justification is to be zero. There's even having a whole conversation centered around riffraff mean that you've already lost the conversation. It means you already lost. You're still bringing the people who shouldn't be involved in the conversation back to the forefront of the conversation, period. That's the problem. We've always done that. Like, there has been no lockout mechanism of keeping every single person who really don't have their finances together and who cannot create a family out of the discussion, period. It's actually been the reverse. The people who actually want an actual family can't get one, and the people who actually want to create things can't really find anybody to team up with. And that's been the actual cultural solution. Like, if you were here within the manosphere not even 3 years ago, the people who claimed that they were actually for black male agency were the same dudes who were pretending like they were the choices of the bad women within the environment, and they were going to genocide most of the productive men in order for us to take care of the kids of those unproductive people. That was the conversation on the manosphere 3 years ago by the same people who want to claim now that they're talking about black boys and their actual solutions. So you have to give it to people who created these problems.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you have to understand that we're having this conversation in reverse. If the majority of the conversation is focusing on trying to fix a certain specific person, then the whole community is centered on how to fix that specific sort of person. If you want to fix things in total, you have to focus on things that work and you have to forget about things that don't. And the moment that you try to, but what about these people? Yeah, what about productive people who has ran out of the community? There's no live streams being made on that. We're still trying to celebrate fake pimps, wannabe street dudes, and everything else here. And that's the problem. We have not created a paradigm where we can leave these nondescript people that we don't want in my society or your society completely out of the conversation in total. We have not created a society where we can not talk about relationship issues. We have not created a society where we don't have to talk about child support issues. We should have just moved on because this stuff was very clear in the 70s, 80s, and 90s about where this thing was actually headed. Like me, I've separated in total. I don't even be a part of the conversations where actually other domestic counterparts are talking about because I don't have the level of infinite choice, but I'm being held to the actual level of their infinite choice to include me in the choice and decision making process. So what you have to do is be like, the moment you start centering the conversation around people that you don't want to be with at the end of the day, you already lost.
Okay, now since you bring up this point, Emily, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to spread out into the panel, and it seems like we're already kind of at the point where we have like only half hour left. So I think that if this is the case, that you need to build a critical mass of the people who strive for excellence. And these are outliers we're talking about. Again, with my whole hierarchical mode. We're not talking about the masses. Okay, the masses, forget all that. We're talking about people who are outliers and the message that they need to get and the way in which, because the outliers also need some help. They need a kick in the ass. Outliers. Right? They need a kick in the butt. The outliers are the people who respond to my "you're a bitch ass nigga" type of comment, right? The masses don't even understand what that means. They'll go cry somewhere. And the thing is, when you're in a community that is not focusing on the outliers, there tends to be a certain kind of a cuddling and a certain not using "you're a bitch ass nigga" talk, right? Now, MOT, and then we'll go to Dr. Thunder. We'll go around here. What kind of a message is to be given, because it's going to be a different tone, a different thing altogether if you're going to focus on the people whom you should be focusing on as opposed to a more broad view?
Yes, what you have to do is to create a reverse. Okay, so there's a socialization piece that made people act like a certain subsegment of men so that way they can make it look like they're one avenue or another. You have to create a reverse socialization piece that actually take the focus off the outcomes of the community and start putting it on the individuals who are putting themselves in those type of specific situations in the first place. Like, that's what my grandfather done, my mother done, grandmother done. That's what we did. We took the focus off of expecting a better community before we got started. We had to understand that we were going to be the ones who get started and fix the actual thing. Is that going to fix systemic racism? No, but you're going to fix your own personal finances in the actual process. And once you fix your actual personal finances in the process, your actual complaints change over time. And the moment you start fixing those things that everybody else is complaining about and start fixing your own personal finances and then start talking about working together in a meaningful fashion, like participating in democracy by having a side pick, you can actually be able to deal with things on that format. But if you focus on low vibrational issues like whether women's going to submit and all this other crazy stuff that no other winning culture has to worry about, because winning cultures have the same issues. Winning cultures had to start with the productivity piece at some point. If you haven't done or started with the productivity piece, you're going to keep assuaging your actual blame to other solvable things in society that everybody else has solved.
Okay. So, Dr. Thunder, but MOT, just one quick 2-word answer here. The school thing that you mentioned, you're talking about not using property taxes. Is that the way to solve that?
For me, yes. Okay. For me, the actual lack of education is a national security issue. I would put the actual gains that need to be made in most of these actual school districts, I would put it in the defense budget. I would put it in the defense budget so that way, you know what, can't have national security without taking care of the black family or taking care of most of rural families around the United States, because those things that are being used against black people are immediately going to start being used against rural whites in this country, which is the majority of the country. But see, you have to go over there and make these type of arguments over there. But if you don't have people who have a side taken, who can be able to make these actual arguments over there, you have people who can't even manage their genitals, talking about reparations and what they're actually owed from the actual government. Like, if you just solve the actual economic based issues, you can bring whites back into the actual forefront. You just have to be able to separate from them, let us know that it is a homogenous based issue over there with them, therefore it's an homogenous based issue over here with us, and solve the issue that way.
Got it. So, Dr. Thunder, the focus here is on the striving of the outliers to build excellence. So, moving away from the broad base of the community, we've removed from the riffraff, we've removed from the middle area. So, Dr. Thunder, what is the nature of the message then that should be given if someone is going to be talking to the outlier and for excellence? Because I don't think that that there is a critical mass of Black excellence being encouraged, or actually that we see on the economic front. And as I mentioned, it's a different tone, a different teaching, and a different message, a very non-cuddling one. If you were to talk, maybe that's for people who respond the way I respond, right? It's going to be like a military stuff where you wake people up. But what do you think about how do you change the message to focus more on the excellence piece, the outlier piece, to build that part of the community?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think you have to focus on what's actually works in a particular community, and then you support that. You don't spend all of your resources trying to build up stuff that has already wasted all the money, that's already shown that it can't be trusted, that it's going to continue to be dysfunctional, right? You have to take the things that are actually working. Um, one of the things that I see that the efforts that are in particular male excellence are considered offensive. They're considered offensive, not just to uh, the Black community. We ourselves are even offended by it. Not only that, but then also it's 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 offensive to the general society because they don't understand the need for us to highlight uh, the strong points. You
But no
know,
one has to
find
co-sign it though, right, Dr. Thunder? The people who are offended, because again, it harkens back to the thing about, the people who are ostracizing you, when I am like, who the hell are those people, right? And then the people who are offended, it's like, well, obviously you're gonna have headwinds, you're gonna have competitors, you're gonna have people who don't like you. They don't have to co-sign your effort
that's true.
to pull people up, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But the next thing I was going to say is we have to learn how to not care about that. We have to we have to we have to learn that uh, that is not an important factor. What's important is that excellence gets modeled, highlighted, and uh, and then those that have the same potential will at least have something to look to. I mean, that's all really that we can do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well put. So, LAR. Okay, I know you're representing the egalitarian here in the panel, right? But still, I'm sure you know that there are people whom are better endowed, more likely to succeed, and they need to be pushed in a way that is different from the mollycoddling that will happen if you're giving the message to the general public. The general message of kumbaya and everything will be great, and oh, the white man took my phone and threw it in the pool. Those people need to be kicked in the butt a little bit. They need to be encouraged to be all that they can be. They need to be shown good examples and all these kinds of things. What are your thoughts about that focus? And by the way, game changer, I think there's a chicken and egg thing with what you're saying, um, about that submissive women just don't appear. Submissive women are placed under a construct of you having conquered something in the real world, and it tends to be an economic conquest type stuff. Okay, and then the women are submissive. But anyways, go ahead, Eliar.
To answer the question, I think that's very difficult in the American psyche. Earlier, like when we first started, you remember you're talking about somebody who was in an oil field and they hit a gusher, right? And they became rich from oil. I think that one of the biggest issues psychologically that causes a lot of these problems is in America, we don't look at success as something that was planned out. It was a byproduct of happenstance. Because the people that this country gravitates to winds up being people who they make the story that it was happenstance. You get what I'm saying? Like even right now, the Jeff Bezos story, right? Great story, but it comes off as a happenstance. He was selling books out of a garage, and then it blew up to this big company. And then the further you go back in history, you could like using an oil reference. That was a Jerry Jones story, right? He was in debt. People thought he was a slickster, and then he hit a gusher, and then he became a billionaire. And it's like he's the smartest man ever. I don't think people look at it as this country has the underdog mentality, and the underdog does not necessarily have to be smart. They don't have to be innovative. They don't have to have a plan. It's just something can happen, and good luck. Kind of like Mark Zuckerberg. Just looked at, well, he was in college playing around, basically making the hookup out, and then he's a multi-billionaire. That's how, and unfortunately, the society goes down there that way. You got people, you got adults like, well, such and such, well, they dropped out of school or they dropped out of college and made something, I can do it. And you got kids in school thinking the same thing. I don't have to take this stuff seriously. Now it's to the point where, I can be an influencer. You got people dropping out of college to be a social media influencer because they see, I'd rather go boom or bust than actually try to build something. And unfortunately, how we look at entertainment in America, it's everybody wants to ascend in an entertainment fashion, even if it's not in the entertainment field. So I think it's difficult. I think the American mindset is, the American dream is kind of like, if all else fails, I could just go to Vegas and hit the lotto. Like it's not a drawn out grind and plan. People look at hard, like I had to use the motto, hard work and dedication as a sucker's bet. And more people lose out because of that. But that's what I think about it.
Yeah, rather than investing, taking some of your check and using it to buy scratch off tickets at the local store.
So, Kaizo, what do you have to say about this idea of, the kind of message that is meant for someone whom is striving to be the god of thunder, as I like to say, and whom is striving to be, to strive beyond even what may even be imaginable possible in their lifetime, and is actually doing the work and needs the little bit of encouragement that they do need, versus someone whom is just, versus just the general celebration of excellence for the community type people. And my camera will come back on momentarily. But what does the message look like? What is the difference between, hey, striving for excellence and the kind of message that means versus let's celebrate excellence and let the masses see people who are like them. The masses, by the way, are never going to get there. And this, by the way, is also tied into my little, but anyways, go ahead and answer the question. What kind of message? Go ahead.
Yeah, great question. I'll get straight to the point. I think someone's striving for, to be the next first version of themselves that is highly successful. I was going to say Peter Thiel, but anyways, that would have defeated the point. I think someone striving for that sort of role is going to want to see success and then be able to embody success in any form. Because if they have to see that success in the form of black, then of course they're not that person, right? They are the person that's sort of in the middle.
Say that again. If you have to see success has to be black for you, you're not that person we're talking about.
Right.
You're just a lower version of a bitch ass nigga. Go ahead, continue.
Right. And but the thing is, I won't be like you. I'll say that there's a point to everyone, right? Bitch ass niggas are required to be the management, because we talk about managers.
There was no point to bitch ass niggas,
right?
But we're not talking about them. We're talking about the tip of the spear, top of the hierarchy, and we don't give a fuck about bitch ass niggas right now. Go ahead.
Right, 100%. So let me give you an example, right? This is a very sort of academia example, but there are great actual black scientists, people like James Gates, right? You know him, the theoretical physicist that does nothing, but still he is a great theoretical physicist. And then you have people like forgot the name of this woman's channel. She's like, I'm the first black American woman with a degree in this obscure quantitative mathematical field with a PhD. And I'm just like, what? those are the I'm trying to separate those two people. James Gates goes there, conquers the world, becomes actually the first person in this university to open up a string theory department. Doesn't talk about that stuff. He just goes there and conquers the world and does what he does. People like that are the ones who are going to inspire people who then go into those fields and have that same mentality. Whether it's black, yellow, green, it's irrelevant. Once you see that the door has been, opened, that's when the great people come. Same thing when I forgot who broke the is it a 10-second mark for the 100 meters. After that, all floodgates of people started opening up. It doesn't have to be someone who's from your town, your what do you call it, code, your not GPS code, what do you guys call it? Your street code and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the point of the God of Thunder, he just needs to make sure that the logic is consistent. The logic allows for something to happen, and then he can actually follow through. And then, of course, there is the programmer. The programmer will go and create the platform. Doesn't even need to see anything.
Okay, so I'm going to say something, and then we're going to go to MOT, and we're kind of wrapping up right now, I believe, because if I look at the time, I'm sure we're almost approaching the hour and a half mark, ladies and gentlemen, and that is true indeed. We're an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, so we're talking about inequality here. Okay, we've talked about the fact that, hey, the tide is receding, and as Warren Buffett said, when the tide recedes, in other words, when there's this no more 0% interest rate, no more all this quantitative easing and laxity, you're going to see the people that are swimming without underwear. So middle management people who do not have transferable skills, okay, and we're not talking about broke people here. We're talking about the middle management bitch ass nigga, right? They're gonna be in a tough position, okay? Same thing with some companies that did not tighten the belt, did not do their unit economics right. Unit economics being, what's coming in, what's going out, and how is the black box of the asset increasing. They're depending on, on financing and companies that are leveraged to the hilt, they're going to go bust. Right now, that what we're seeing with FTX and Celsius and all that stuff, that's just the tip of the spear. The layoffs and even Salesforce, the CEO of Salesforce, you don't have to know who he is, but this is one of those CEOs. He's from Hawaii. It's all mahalo and we're a family. He just let go of I think thousands of people. Okay, that is the tip of the spear. I always say that technology is the tip of the spear because it tends to be the closest to venture capital, which tends to be the closest to interest rates, money, blah blah blah. Right? So we've been talking about that, and we're now down to the point of the message that needs to be given to somebody whom is actually going to be the person striving for success, that is going to be the tip of the spear, that is going to be building the next billion-dollar company, okay? And there's no reason why they can't be black. And if they don't have to see somebody, these kinds of people, by the way, don't have to see a black person, all that kind of stuff. This is not that message, right? So the final points are just some simple tips, because the tips are simple. It's always very simple, right? I always talk about the first thing that you need to leverage is skill. You need to skill up. If you think that there's a lottery ticket or some kind of Instagram thing that you're going to click on, some kind of multi-level marketing scheme you're going to join that's going to work, you're an idiot, okay? You need to skill up first. That's the first thing you then leverage in the marketplace. After you leverage that, then you can start leveraging other people's labor. How do you leverage other people's labor? You skill up in an area where you can get a certification. The quickest way to get there typically is blue collar, right? Blue collar, skill up, get a certification so you can open your own shingle. From there, you start leveraging other people's labor. And then you stack up capital, and then you start leveraging capital. You rinse and you repeat. It's the same process. I don't care if you're building Amazon or you're building a dentistry practice. It's the same thing. Skill up, certification up, leverage other people's labor, and then leverage capital. Now let's kind of go around the panel in terms of just what you would tell this person starting out right now. Maybe they're 19 years old, and you want to give them a word of encouragement and a simple path such as I've just laid out. MOT, LAR, Kaizo, and then we end with Dr. Thunder.
All right, for me, you have to understand that everything around you is precipice on failure. If you cannot connect with the things that you normally see within your daily lives, the economic outcomes that you see people are actually around, and the actual educational opportunities that are actually leading to that. Because you have to remember, I graduated in school in the mid-90s. There was nothing out there. The internet was new. Now you know the whole track record and the process of how everything works. I'm like, look, you need to get with somebody who's going to put you on an actual program that is going to make sure that you have leverageable skills in the future. That's not going to be people within their school because they're not there. You have to be able to get to these blue collar actual career fields and be able to move. You cannot depend on these failures to lead you to success. They're failing for a reason. And yes, most people at the actual academic level are at the starting gate. They haven't even started on producing anything. They're producing people who's going to be starting at the starting gate. I want people to understand that you can be better than me right now, knowing everything that I know about how these things works, how the outcome is, who not to actually team up with for any reason. Once you're there, work with professionals. Do not try to have this redemption story, trying to bring these people along with you who do not have a track record of success or even brotherhood. Thank you so much for having me on. You have a really nice day, sir.
All right, you too. And LAR, what will be your okay? And I'm asking you for something now, advice for people, because I know LAR, you like to talk about what's gonna happen. You're gonna just say, hey, people are just not gonna do it. They're gonna buy bullets, they're gonna shoot people. Okay, but there is somebody out there right now, they're 19 years old. What should they be doing in terms of, they have potential. They're not your BAN. Go ahead.
Don't advertise your successes if you can't protect them. The other thing I would say is, if you see progress, stick to the plan. Do the opposite of the quiet quitting that's going on in America and the social media craze, because what's going to wind up happening is when they look up, the world's going to close in on them. And when you look up, the world's going to open up to you. So, but you have to be willing to, don't be like the norm, and don't be caught up into the trends, because they're just going to drag you down. So that would be my advice.
Do not advertise your success unless you can protect it. Do not be like the norm. Don't be like the trend. The trend will drag you down. It is average, after all. The trends tend to be. Okay. So, Kaizo, what is the next thing? Perhaps you could be more specific. You have already mentioned Chat GP3. Maybe you didn't. Maybe I'm the one that's thinking about it. I got Chat GP3 or Chat GPT, that is, by the in the brain.
They're both accurate. They're both real things.
Oh, okay, cool. So that's by OpenAI, right? And Microsoft is going to incorporate it into Bing. Okay, and somebody came up with a great tagline. It says, why search, just ask, right? Rather, that'll be a competition to Google. I think that this is the first credible competition to Google. But okay, in terms of fields to get into, things that you can do, ways that you can augment the things that you're currently doing in order to strive for that success and excellence, what are your pieces of advice?
Well, you've asked quite, loaded. Do you mean you as a person that can integrate this new technology for your own success, or?
Yeah. We're talking again about outliers, not BANs, people whom actually have their eyes open and can hear what you're saying. And because I already mentioned that none of this stuff is rocket science. Even rocket science is not rocket science, right? That whether you're building this company or that company, it tends to be a simple wash, rinse, and repeat process. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I would say is that we're in the precipice of a technological change that already has proven itself. I've used Chat GPT to actually write 4 of my YouTube videos. Hey, and I got decent views from them, right? I've used it quite technologically as well, and it helped to actually write a few basic scripts as well. So I've seen its power. I've seen the accuracy issues, and that's the point, right? Chat GPT, or in general, that whole OpenAI system, but specifically this area, and also there's another one called DALI 2. And it's basically an AI art thing, and it's incredible. Like the stuff, the level of quality, and the level of sort of attention to detail, as well, even the human intuition in the art is actually pretty incredible. Okay, the point I'm trying to make here is this: if you are gonna be willing to see the future, and unfortunately, I think our people, Afro-descendant people, we're not great at looking into the future. We tend to complain that other groups have already kind of manifested in the real estate bubble or something else. So my point here is this: right now, something like ChatGPT can mean if you open up any sort of company, you don't need to have like so much overhead. You don't have to keep employing people to be doing basic research, basic sort of templating, putting things into Excel sheets. You can literally get the ChatGPT to do most of this stuff for you. The basic sort of real-time response that you're going to get from, like a lot of people doing research, this is going to really help kind of curl that point. So if you're going to get into business, utilize the technology, understand how it functions. You don't even have to get skilled necessarily.
Sales. Tell me,
Right.
okay, I sell dental equipment. How many dentists are in such and such area
Right.
that are within such and such revenue? Boom, boom. Yeah, I get it, right? Typically, you would have to depend on Facebook ads and stuff to do such
Right.
targeting. But now you have the AI in your hands to be able to do this kind of stuff. And this is just one example in terms of the top of the funnel type marketing. But
Okay, so yeah, perfect example. So good point for actually bringing it up. Okay, so let's say I own a hair company. I'm actually supplying different companies with weave, right? I'm actually at the top of the funnel. I'm out there in India. I'm out there in Colombia. I know there's a market. Black women love weave, right? So I'm looking for, okay, how many stores are within my state that sell weave of this quality? So right now, ChatGPT is going to get integrated into Bing search, meaning it's going to be real-time, real information searches, and it's getting more accurate. So you're going to be able to get really specific. So you can be like, okay, look, there's 200 stores that sell it. Write down their phone number. Put their phone number into a sheet that can be related back into my Excel sheet. Okay. Call them. In fact, there is also, Google's already made a calling AI. So you can then call them, send out this message, tell them to send me an email if they're interested. Go back and check the emails, scan for any positive emails. So you also put a tagline, what is a positive email? So all this stuff reduces the amount of workers you'd have had to have in previous times, like 3 or 4 people to help you do that kind of work, to just you, until you're willing to grow. And just by increasing one person, you already multiply that person's efficiency by 10. So then that's where, that's perfect example how you're going to be able to do business with this model.
That's a great example. I'm going to add one more thing to that point also, but shout out to Dana, the real Dana with the data, alumnus. Yes, that's the individual one versus alumni, which is alumnus of the show, emeritus, panelist emeritus. Always welcome back here anytime. Thank you for the $20 super chat. Says, question, Black families need fathers, not reparations. Why can't you get both? I would say, but definitely fathers are way more important than a check, right? Fathers are way more important than a check. If you're going to reduce the comparison itself is offensive, I would say. So I don't think I need to ask the rest of the panel. I think that we are all in agreement there that fathers will be way on top of the list there. And in the role of father here, we're continuing with the advice. And I would say that, look, I'm going to get just one layer deeper into the weeds here. After all, we're talking to people whom are not idiots, let's say. And shout out to my camera again. But when we talk about AI, Kaizo, we're really talking about data, right? Because AI gets trained on data. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kaizo. Right?
Yeah, that's correct. Data is, very important.
Then you have the inference aspect. So it gets trained on massive amounts of data. So it's just this crazy thing in the matrix sweeping the internet. And then it's able to do the inference thing. And the inference is what gets you the answer in a way which makes sense and you can understand, right? So on the data front, we know that Facebook has the market cornered when it comes to your consumption of, let's say, media, in terms of the data about how you consume certain types of media, right? They got Instagram, they got Facebook. So they got that data from cornered. Google has data cornered with regards to search, right? But data is not cornered in many other important aspects. What am I saying here? I'm saying that they're big, multi-$100 billion companies still that could be made in the front of, let's say, medical data. There is nobody that has the whole game sewn up with regards to medical data. So, because right now you can't have that AI in the medical space because there's no company that knows everything about everybody when it comes to medical data. Google doesn't know that about you. You just know what you search for. The marketing, as far as Facebook, they know that. But so that's my point. And
so here, right. Good. Okay. So something to do with what you talk about here, if I relate it in certain different formats. So you have, again, we're going to go back into Web 3.0. So NFTs, right? non-fungible tokens technology, whereby every individual has their ID or whatever passport number that they have that's attached to a blockchain code. Meaning, so they don't have their name openly accessible, because obviously the issue with medical issues is, okay, there is obviously the problem of hacking it, the data, depending where it is. Now here, it would be very difficult to hack personal information, because first of all, you'd have to know that that number corresponds to this person's ID, which then corresponds to this person's name. So there's multiple different layers. So what this allows is you can actually centralize everybody within the system information. So every time we go to a new hospital, there's no looking back at some dusty files. There's, again, because it's also anonymized, you can be going around there, just things like age, race, gender can then be obviously sold onto these data centers or data analytics, AI analytics. And then you see, you're already removing the issues, which is really to do with data protection, by actually making it anonymous, yet also making it efficient. So things like that, this is one of the guaranteed sort of things that will happen. It's not even like it might or whatever.
Somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to make a few hundreds of billions of dollars on that.
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And in other words, yes, flesh and blood, air breathing human being, it's going to happen. Somebody's going to do it. 100%. So if you're the person that has the potential for that kind of thing, these are the ideas. And by the way, it's not just that one person that does that one thing. There are many, many, many multi-millionaires around the concept of Google, let's say. Many, many multi-millionaires or even billionaires coming out from the Facebook family. Many, many millionaires, multi-millionaires, and billionaires coming out from the PayPal, what they call the PayPal mafia. So it's not just the one big idea. It's going to be all the things that surround it, right? And all the other offshoots, for example, of this kind of medical data that we're talking about.
For example, Google, you have Amazon, you have Microsoft Azure, data centers. So Google is a great search thing, but they have to store their data somewhere. Yes, they have a little bit of this, but they also offshoot it off to places like Amazon, right? So there's always going to be like a whole market that's created out of this new technology. So we basically, as people who are trying to seek for the next level, we've got to get funding. So we've got to know basic stuff about how money and projects function. How do you get funding? How do you convince someone to actually give you the money to actually set up a project? Do you have proof of work? Like, have you worked with other people in certain areas and the level of, I
have a simple thing about that, by the way, and which is you need to know the language of money, right? Especially, you need to know the language of money. You need to know the language of finance. You need to know the difference between what is a stock and what is a bond. Okay, what is a hedge fund exactly? What does that mean? What are derivatives? You don't have to be a trader, but you need to know the language of money if at all you want to get close to money. Why is that true? Well, because it's true for everything else. You want to get close to somebody, you need to speak what they speak, care about what they care about. Sales 101, okay? You talk to the client about what keeps them up at night, not what you want to talk about. Oh, I got a camera. It's got this nice features and benefits. And it's like, that's not what they give a damn about. They care about maybe one little feature or maybe something else. So you got to know what they care about. Go ahead.
I think you made a really good point. I'm not an expert sales yet or anything like that. Actually, I'm very far from it. But you made a really great point there, because I've worked with people, and I've worked with people that almost try to convince me that I should want what they are trying to sell, even though they can provide what I want, instead of focusing on that aspect, because then they have access to giving me what I want, but they'll rather somehow try to convince me to take what they think their spirit, in their spirit, that I should want. That's not how business is done. That's not how sales or marketing happens.
Horrible salespeople there. But let's stop nerding out. Let's stop nerding out, Kaizo. Calm down. Let's close out with Dr. Thunder. Okay. The question is still about advice for those striving for excellence. Okay. So think about the outlier. Think about yourself. Think about when you were younger, what you would give the advice you would give yourself with someone that's like you, striving for excellence. Forget the rest of the community. Yeah, I added that last part just to poke you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you have to choose models and mentors not based on immutable characteristics. Okay, not just because I need somebody that's that's black to to teach me. I need somebody that is my height to teach me, my gender to teach me. I need somebody that is, even necessarily plays the same instrument. What's important is that you have those that do what it is that you're trying to do at a very high level, and the excellence, what is the skill, is the priority, not this other stuff that in the long run doesn't actually matter. I think one of the issues that we have in our community is we tend to hyper focus on if the person looks like us, and then somehow that's it's better. You can at least keep your community card if you're modeling yourself after someone that looks like you, even if they are not the best person, right? You have the option of other folks to learn from, maybe that don't look like you, and you won't take the opportunity because you're in fear of what that looks like. So I think that's a primary thing. And then we also need to be willing to celebrate black excellence, in particular black male excellence, because of the way that we're depicted. The kinds of things that are highlighted in the media are not particularly flattering, and so we need to take every opportunity to do that. We have to also understand that other folks will likely not understand that, and highlighting black male excellence is offensive to many because they don't understand the dynamic in our community and the need for it. So we just have to be okay with, being on the outside with that. So that's my thoughts.
Not basing models on immutable. Yeah. In your whole hierarchy of models, take from everywhere. Take from all societies, all myths, all people in your present day as well. Very, very good points. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to a close of this, the January the 8th episode of Case Closed. Still coming strong every Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Next week's going to be on Dr. Thunder's channel, where we'll be bringing you a fire panel, fire discussion, relevant topics, things that actually are actionable, simple, measurable, okay? Things that you can take into the world tomorrow and make a difference with. And until next time, well, first of all, let me shout out to LAR, shout out to Dr. Thunder, rest of the panelists, MOT, Kaizo, and the rest of them. You all go and check out Dana's channel later, 7 p.m. Eastern, I believe she said, Dr. Thunder, right? So go ahead and check that out. Thank you again, Dana, for the super chat. And until next time, peace. We're gone.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what's a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons will breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady right rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised. The battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.